Hey everybody, this is Dr. Chris Dost. Welcome back to my channel, Biblical Languages and Literature. Before we get started with our video, let me just share with you a few of Sabra Global Education's exciting upcoming courses. First, starting April 24th, Rabbi Dr. Robert Harris of the Jewish Theological Seminary will be teaching an ongoing weekly course, the Book of Isaiah from yesterday to today. This course meets 1 hour per week and it is ongoing. This course is open enrollment, so you can start and stop at any time. Each week, Dr. Harris will work through the book of Isaiah methodically, periodically taking excursions into medieval, Jewish, and Christian interpretation. This course is not to be missed. On April 25th and April 26th, Dr. Paul Copan of Palm Beach Atlantic University will teach a mini-course, Did God Really Command Genocide? A detailed examination of Israel's wars against the Canaanites. The purpose of this course is to help one critically examine what the Hebrew scriptures say and do not say about the wars against the Canaanites. And it's not too late to register for Dr. Jeffrey Garcia's live course, The Dead Sea Scrolls and the New Testament. While the first session has already been completed, all class sessions are recorded and available to students enrolled in the course. This course is designed for those who wish to develop a deeper understanding of the Jewish backgrounds of the New Testament. And please be sure to check out some of our self-paced courses, including Dr. Stephen Notley's 4-part course, Jesus' Parables as Jewish Scripture, and Rabbi Dr. Robert Harris's The Passover Seder and the Last Supper, Jewish and Christian Traditions in Dialogue and Competition. And for those who are looking for private lessons, whether it be in foreign languages, art, music, math, study skills, and more, please check out our online lessons and tutoring page to find your personal teacher today. All right, let's get started.
And the story goes, as we have it, as you would imagine, a lot of the story that we have is based on oral traditions being passed down. One person tells another story, another person tells another story. So we have multiple versions, or I should say variants, within the long sort of storied history of the discovery. Basically, you know that the reason we call the Dead Sea Scrolls is because they are found in caves on the western shore of the Dead Sea. Okay, the western shore of the Dead Sea, since the 20th century, early 20th century, has been called the Judean Desert because it is a desert environment. In this desert environment, for years, you had Bedouin, which were nomadic Arab tribes that made their way through the desert, herding their sheep and goats to various places to find food. Because as you would imagine, in a desert, even a desert that receives some rain per year, depending on the rainfall, it's going to be difficult for their goats and sheep to feed. So they are going to go forward and they're going to try to find a place for their sheep and goats to eat. Okay, this is the imagery that should be in the back of your head for Psalm 23 and the Good Shepherd. The story, as it is said, says that 5 of this particular Bedouin tribe, called the Ta'amire tribe, take out their flock, and they are going forward to basically lead them to some kind of food, right? What happens is that as the shepherd is in the back of the flock, they are throwing rocks to redirect strays back to the flock. Okay, they are throwing stones. Okay. The story is that the cave that is pictured here, which is eventually going to be cave 1, that there's an errant rock somewhere and the rock goes into the cave, and all of a sudden they hear a jar shatter. Now, this is where the story splits a bit. The story is either the Bedouins, shepherds, took their flocks back to their tribe, they came back the next day and then entered the cave to see what had shattered. The story goes from there to the oral story that I've heard as well, that they feared that they may have, because they heard a broken jar, that they may have released a genie. And in Arab culture, a genie is essentially what other faiths might call a demonic entity. So they return back, they come, and they begin to find parchment. They begin to find parchment in jars. Some of those jars are sealed by clay. Some of those jars, when they are opened, release a foul odor because their things have grown on them over the 2,000 years they've been there. Of course, the Bedouin know nothing about the scrolls or epigraphy or ancient texts, so they don't know they're 2,000 years old. But over the time they've survived, there are fragments, there are things that are eaten away, there are things that we would probably consider offensive when they open the jars. But eventually, and these are the two Bedouin that we really talk about being mostly involved with this, they are eventually total, not numbering some of the small fragments. The scrolls that they found are going to be a total of 7. The first 7 manuscripts of Cave 1 are the Great Isaiah Scroll, the Thanksgiving Hymn, the War Scroll that are bought by Sukenik when he goes to Bethlehem. The ones that are recovered by Yadin after reading the Wall Street Journal ad, of all things, is a copy of Isaiah, the Community Rule, Pesher Habakkuk, and Genesis Apocryphon. These are the names that are given by scholars to them. Now, you may not know some of these, but the Great Isaiah Scroll, you will know if you've ever read the book of Isaiah, because it is a 2,000-year-old copy of the entire book of the prophet Isaiah. It is 24 feet long. Okay, that is about, if you know what a full-size pickup truck looks like, put 3 end to end, and that is the size of the Isaiah scroll. Okay, Thanksgiving hymns, War Scroll, Community, the Community Rule, Habakkuk, Genesis Apocryphon. We'll talk a little bit more next week. These are scrolls that belong to the community that lived in the desert, but they're also going to find, Yadin's also going to find another copy of Isaiah, which already gives you 2 things, by the way, if you're following. It gives you 1, we have 7 manuscripts. Some of them are biblical, some of them are not. That's going to be important for our conversation as we go on in the course. Now let's talk about what we have in the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have documents from a community, from them specifically, communal rules, ideas about who they are, their theology, so on and so forth. The second group we have are Aramaic and Hebrew works that reflect the theology of the community, but that originate outside of the community, which means what? That the Dead Sea Scrolls and its community are both a scribal community and also a, for lack of a better way of saying it, a librarian community, which means that they are composing and copying their own scrolls, but they are also preserving and storing other scrolls. Then there are works that tell us about the larger world of Judaism. And finally, we have Old Testament and Hebrew Bible manuscripts. Okay. Now, we're coming to a close here, so let me just give you a couple of tidbits, at least about the Hebrew Bible. Okay. We have complete portions of every book in the Hebrew Bible Testament except for Esther. Esther's probably lost over time and was probably connected with Ruth, the book of Ruth. We can talk about that in a later class. The Psalm scroll, which is a copy of the Psalms that we have in the Old Testament, 150 Psalms. Well, the Qumran document has 151 Psalms. There are 2 versions of Jeremiah. Okay, one is shorter than the one that we have. 2, manuscript B and D, are shorter than the one we currently have in our Bible. And we also have a couple forms of Ezekiel, interestingly enough. Because some of the books in the Bible that we know of from the Old Testament, Qumran preserves multiple copies of them. Okay, so like Jeremiah, I think, has 7 manuscripts total, and 2 of the 7 are shorter, and the other 5 are longer. And 2 more things, and then I'll let you guys ask a question or questions. In the Bible, we have a poem, a Psalm 145, that uses each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, an acrostic poem. Use each letter of the Hebrew alphabet to begin each verse. Okay, so let's say if you're doing it in English, you don't see it in English because there's a difference between the English and the Hebrew. But let's say if you were doing it in English, you would do A through Z. Verse 1 begins with A, verse 2 begins with B, so on and so forth. So we have this in the Hebrew Bible. Psalm 145 is an example of this. As they were going, if you read it in Hebrew, you will notice that if you look here, I've highlighted it here in red. You have the Y sound, you have kaf, it's a C sound. Okay, you have the letters of Hebrew, but there's one missing here. In English, we have an M, we have a M followed by an N. Okay, in Hebrew, the mem that makes the M noise is also followed by the letter nun, which is the N sound. Okay, it is missing here where if you could see my cursor between 13 and 14, you need an N letter, you need a nun. Okay, but it is missing. We didn't know what it was. We weren't sure whether it was a scribal mistake or what happens. Lo and behold, they find a Qumran scroll, a copy of the Psalms, and check it out. We're going from M here. Okay. If you look to the left, compare with the left, you have this what looks like a letter with a little tail on the top left. That is the mem. It's the N sound. And then you have like this circular, looks like a bearded face with a little swerve of hair there. Looks like a circle. That is the S sound. You see it here on the right. And in the middle, we have this letter here that is beginning the second line. And that is the nun, which means that the Qumran texts preserve the acrostic poem, Psalm 145, the acrostic hymn, completely in a way that the Hebrew Bible had not. And even nowadays, depending on which particular translation you have, you may read footnotes that have information about the Dead Sea Scrolls and how they help us to understand what the Bible looked like in the ancient world.